good afternoon. We're broadcasting live from Manor Road United Church. My name is John Joseph Mastrandrea, and it's an honor today to celebrate some very special speaker who we'll hear from, Susan Johnson, who's our team lead. And over to you, Susan, to welcome our speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. We are happy to welcome Jordana Wright to speak today. She's the founder and managing director of Activate Space, which helps congregations excel as community hubs. So she helps us to, connect with groups that might not otherwise consider churches as a venue. So we're willing to hear about this, Jordana.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. And so it's a very interesting story of how I came to develop this venture and lead it. And it's a story that very interestingly, in a large part, actually starts at Manor Road, which may surprise you all. So I'll tell a bit of the story and then I'll talk about the Manor Road connection as well. So as Susan mentioned, I do lead Activate Space, which is a company that helps congregations excel as community hubs. And increasingly in the last few years, that has been through a tech platform that helps congregations connect with nearby innovators and just organizations that have very high social impact in their local community, so they can kind of log in, create their own profile, share the spaces they have, the opportunities they have. And for example, if a congregation has a kitchen that's available on Tuesday evenings, someone who is an emerging chef or caterer in their neighborhood might say, you know what, I have this incredible business that has outgrown my home kitchen and I want to expand and I want to be in a very encouraging community setting. Then those folks can find the closest church and be in community with their church and kind of start to build a relationship that isn't just renting space, isn't just a tenant-landlord relationship. It's really about building community. It's really about coming together and figuring out how you can bring one another value and create a vibrant local hub. So this is something that exists across Canada, anywhere in Canada, actually the world really. Churches can log on and they can show their spaces and their opportunities, and folks who wouldn't necessarily be aware as churches and being in community with churches as something that might be possible for them can log on and they can see what that looks like, because sometimes people are a little bit nervous about walking through the front door of a church. Oftentimes that is such a big hurdle for people who aren't church folks. So the platform allows them to look behind that door and to see what's going on in each individual community right in their local neighborhood. So that's sort of what I've built and what I've developed. But thinking about the very early days of Activate Space, it was very, very different. So in the early days, when I first started Activate Space, so I am someone who has worked in community ministry with all sorts of different congregations. And a lot of that is in-person community building. So a lot of that is about sort of bringing groups physically to church spaces and filling the spaces and helping churches reach financial sustainability by partnering with all sorts of different local organizations. But through the tech platform, it allows me to do that on a greater scale, and it allows us to leverage technology and modern communication approaches and all sorts of things to do this work. But before I had the resources or the vision or anything to develop that, it was just me, my laptop, my ideas, and my particular skill set that I felt that I could offer the church. And I had worked in community building for quite some time, but I knew my heart was in working with the church. So I wanted to find ways to bring together all of these gifts that I felt I had, this very bold vision that I had for the future and for working with congregations, and just incredible opportunities that I was excited about. But again, it was just me, my laptop, my ideas, and my very empty pocket. So one of the first places that I landed in trying to learn more about what it looked like to rent space with different congregations or support congregations financially through like rental contributions, and just being in church space in that way as a tenant was Manor Road. So one of the spaces that I rented out early on just as my office space, my home base to kind of sit and learn and do the work and connect and build, because it took quite a few years to build out this platform that now is Activate Space. As I worked in community ministry with different congregations and did all of this kind of work, my home base for a while was actually the Manor Road Sanctuary. And you will notice on all of many of the initiatives I launch and the platforms I launch, including Activate Space, you'll always see a little random thing related to Manor Road, just kind of an acknowledgement of like, that was like the very first place that I started building out this big thing that people know and love now. And I think on the Activate Space platform, I think on one of the sign up forms, when it pops up, you'll see, I think it was my seat at the desk when I was creating the platform in the Manor Road Sanctuary. So I would come to the sanctuary, set up my desk, I would sit, I would think, I would figure things out, I would do kind of the on the ground work of community building and make my phone calls, connect with the different congregations I would be working with. And it was just a busy time, a time where I was trying to figure out where I fit in this work. What could this look like? Would I be someone who was just working on contract and community ministry for different congregations, which I still do and I love? Or would I be someone who would be able to launch my own initiative? I didn't have the resources to do that. I wasn't sure how it would come together, but like clockwork, I had my space at Manor Road I would go to, and that was like the time that I would carve out in my week to sit and think and figure out all these moving parts and what it was going to look like for me to be able to serve in the way that I felt called to serve. So I would sit, and every time around lunchtime, Manuel or Manny would come and he would sit with me, who, for those who are watching who might not be familiar with Manor Road, he's actually the custodian there. So he would come and he would sit with me. And at that time, I was actually pretty broke. So he would come, he would sit with me during his lunch. He would bring a slice of pizza, he would cut it in half, he'd give me one piece, and he would have one piece. I can almost cry thinking about this. And so we would talk and we'd figure it out. And just from those conversations, from that hospitality, excuse me. So, oh my gosh, that's very unexpected. So from those early days, I'm so sorry, everyone. That was actually very unexpected.
Just be yourself. Just be yourself.
Yeah, you have a very incredible community member in Manuel, and just kind of thinking about the early days of building this thing that's been so incredibly successful now, and I almost forgot. So, yeah, so from those early discussions, from that early time of trying to figure out what this platform would be, how I would be able to serve, what I would be able to make, it has become Activate Space, which has been just such a blessing to so many different communities, and I've been able to make such an incredible impact. And I've even surprised myself. I could never really envision building what it is that I have built with the help of just so many incredible allies along the way and so many faith leaders that I've worked with. And it's just, it has been such a wild ride. And it has been something that has like won awards and has been recognized in different ways just around the world. And it all started from just sitting with Manuel and talking and trying to figure out what it was that I would be able to build or do. I just could have never imagined it. So now fast forwarding to the less emotional part of this, the present day. Um, so with the pandemic, a lot of congregations are facing like all sorts of different financial challenges and thinking about like what their future might be like as they return, and they've lost out on like a ton of rental income. And one of the most awesome things that I've been able to do through Activate Space lately is be able to offer congregations that are on the brink of closure just all of these incredible opportunities to connect with new and different groups that they would have never had the opportunity to connect with, and to build community together and to find collaborators that are just down the street from their buildings, oftentimes who they had never met or spoke with, or they never knew they could connect with in the way that they have connected with them. So it's been so cool to see, like, as we start to think about returning to business as usual and post pandemic, what things are going to be like and look like. And many have faced all these financial challenges. It's been so cool to be that platform or that tool that a lot of the congregations can log on to and make use of. And I've just seen this community around this work grow and grow from such like meager small beginnings. And it's just been such an incredible ride. And so one of the most interesting things is, since my work is at the intersection of faith and faith community building, but also technology, a lot of the circles that I fall within as I do my work are tech related circles. So a lot of the folks that I'm in community with are these other kind of young tech entrepreneurs. And when they talk about their collaborators and when they talk about folks that they work with and who have helped them get to the point that they're at, or who they continue to work with day to day, it's usually these small groups of people fresh out of university, these like 20 and 30-year-olds who they work with. But my venture is so unique in that, like, the average age of my collaborator that's part of a innovative new tech venture is like folks in their 60s, 70s, 80s. I even have some folks in their 90s who are a part of this work, who like are committed to innovation and building new tools and seeing new leaders in the church like me, like other people. And they're all for just this breath of fresh air of a different perspective, a new lens on what's happening in the church, and new tools that they can make use of. So I always feel like I have a little bit of a competitive advantage because I have so much wisdom on my side, whereas most tech companies have 20 and 30-year-olds. I have my 70, 80, and 90-year-olds that I work alongside. And it's just been so cool to be in community and conversation, and to have like that mutual sharing of like my tech skill set and their experience in the church and their experience in doing all sorts of things. Like, one of the interesting things that has emerged is a lot of people, when they hear that the average person that I work with in putting together this platform and this initiative is of that age group, a lot of people forget that a lot of these folks are retired bankers, urban planners, politicians. Like, although they are of an older like age group, these people have lived very storied lives and have all kinds of experiences that they're able to share. And I feel like I just really benefit from that in my work, not just in community ministry and in the early days, but just also in putting together and leading a very successful tech company now. Like, that is something, just my roots in the church and being able to remain in community with all sorts of incredible folks in the church. It's just been such an asset to my work and to everything that I've built and done thus far. So that was my my very exciting tear-filled story. But I also wanted to share. So as I've built out this company, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is how to continue to create opportunities for other young folks in the church, maybe someone like me who didn't see someone like them in leadership within the church or within ministry, and maybe they need to see a face that looks like them. I've been trying to find ways to connect with more folks like that, younger folks who are coming from like a tech background or community building background or have different skill sets, and I'd love to like serve the church in some way. I've been trying to reach out and make sure that I have a ton of those folks. I'm available to a ton of those folks and letting them know that there is a place for them within the church. They may not stumble across their manual, so I'm trying to be that for those sorts of people. So there's so many people at a time when the church has been discussed as shrinking and aging and young folks not wanting to be involved. I've just seen so many people approach me and say how cool they think my work is and how they want to be a part of it and how they want to work with congregations and how they want to serve, but they just don't know what their place is within the church. And I do empathize with them because I also didn't know what my place was. Like, you only really see two roles. Like, you'll see the minister in terms of like clergy, and then you'll see maybe an administrator, but you don't know the different roles that exist within ministry, or you don't know if there are ways that you can use your unique gifts in serving the church. And these are folks that are coming from like finance backgrounds, like healthcare backgrounds and tech backgrounds as well. And they're saying, I see what you've done and I want to do something like that too, but they don't know where they fit in. So I have a bit of a crew of very highly educated, very highly eager people who I'm also trying to connect with other congregations and to do innovative projects like the project that I've done, or something just very unique to their own skill sets and their own context. But I think for me, that shows that although sometimes there is this feeling of being a little bit tired, especially post-pandemic, and a lot of concerns about the future of the church, again, as the average congregation member is aging, I think there's also a ton of hope and there's a ton of interest out there. And there's just a gap between those who are interested and want to serve and want to connect and be a part of what's happening in the church or offer their unique skill sets. There's a gap between that and congregations that would like to welcome that. And I don't know what that is all the time. Sometimes I just make introductions to folks, but there are a ton of people out there who are just like me, who have the vision to build innovative things. But I think it does take someone within the congregation, whether it's the custodian or a member of staff or the minister themselves, to be able to identify that and to take an interest, because without that, maybe I wouldn't have pursued what I pursued. So I think that we all need to be very vigilant and mindful when we see young people kind of showing an interest, and think about how we can let them know that we see them and we're there to kind of like support them through the process of thinking about what they might want to do, or thinking about what they might want to build in the church that's very unique to them. Because in the coming years, we're just going to see ministry look very, very different. Maybe there will be more innovative ministries emerge like mine that are very tech powered, very online, global kind of platforms. Maybe that is a form of ministry that's going to emerge a ton. And there may be young people even within your own congregation who have these sorts of ideas and these skill sets, but it's so, so important that we see them, we find them, and we take an interest and we spend the time and encourage them. And there's just so much. I'm just so hopeful for the future of the church, despite all of the the many, many challenges that everyone is facing. And this is a message that I feel so committed to sharing in contexts like this, but also broadly. I'm always just like the first one to tell this story and to share what's possible, because it's so unbelievable. Like, people don't believe how this all came together. But before I get too emotional, I feel like it's just one of those days. But I think it's just so important. I think it's so important that we take an interest in young people. I think it's so important that we nurture those skill sets. And I think it's so important that we consider unlikely leaders, different forms of ministry, and just the ways that different people with a different sort of vision can create things that we could have never, ever imagined. So before we start to close out and stuff, I wanted to also just talk about this incredible digital ministry network that I've been a part of. And so essentially during the pandemic, all sorts of folks across the church, from those who work in kind of very tech-based digital ventures like mine or others, we all came together and created this thing called the Coffee Hour Network. And we all host different shows and programs on the network. So there's Minister Brad Morrison, who loves cycling. So he hosts a show where he takes you on a bike ride around his small town, and you are able to do Bible study while watching him make these very sharp turns on this very crazy path on his bike. There's another minister, Eric Hubert Daly, who's actually the head of French ministry at the United Church of Canada. He has a show on the Coffee Hour Network that I coordinate, and he loves movies. So he, with a panel of other colleagues in ministry, reviews a lot of pop culture and movies and shares his theological perspective on it. And I host a live cooking show where I collect United Church of UCW cookbooks that I cook some of the interesting recipes from the past. We've done jelly salads and all sorts of things. So that's one thing that I'd love to invite you all to. If anything's coming up in terms of a live jelly salad cooking session or a crazy bike ride around a small town during Bible study, or a movie review of your favorite movie from a theological perspective, I don't want to put your minister on the spot, but I'd love if you would participate in something related to the network. We can talk about it later going forward, or even you all in the congregation would take a peek at some of the recordings we did. The most recent interview I did was actually an interview with someone named Karen Hilton-Milson, and she's a minister in the United Church for the Shining Waters region. And she had been going through a battle with cancer, and we talked to her about that process and what that struggle has been like. So some of your favorite faith leaders, including hopefully in future your minister too, have offered their stories and their skill sets towards the network. So if you're ever bored and you want to see one of your favorite ministers do something fun, you can log on to the Coffee Hour Network and check that out. So I'm all about online community building, digital community building from my own venture, Activate Space, which you can check out at activatespace.io, to these broader initiatives that bring together people across the church, like Coffee Hour. So that is my story, my testimony. And just, I would love for you all to be a part of this journey. So as we close out, if you have any questions about anything that I've shared, or any questions about getting involved, I'd be happy to answer those. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Yes, I remember you at Manor Road, and Manuel is, as you say, a wonderful resource. He knows the community, he knows the groups, he knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And he still shares his pizza. It's quite wonderful.
There's something about that pizza.
Oh yeah, it's because sometimes you'll forget to eat lunch and they'll bring it in my office. It's quite wonderful. Yes.
I'll tell you what people can open up. It's the pizza.
Yeah. No, Jordana, you're truly remarkable. You have my mind going fast forward in about 1,000 directions, of course. But yeah, certainly we'd love to be chat further at some other time about a coffee chat. And certainly I'm a movie maniac, and superheroes are big on my agenda. And I don't know if we could do something while I'm running. Now, would this be live or pre-recorded if you did a coffee thing?
Some live and some pre-recorded, but the lives are super fun because people from all across the country, different congregations tune in and they can talk to you while you do it. But we also have pre-recorded, so no pressure.
Well, I'm just thinking out loud because I do run early in the morning, but maybe I could pick another time during the day. And it'd be interesting for people to see the route that I do, because essentially I'm going through Cabbagetown, down in the valley across the bridge up to the other side of Riverdale, and then down Broadview. And it's a very colorful neighborhood, I can tell you that much. Okay. Every Chinatown East and you name it. I mean, between there's a shelter at the St. Orthodox shelter, and I mean, yeah, the list goes on. Yeah. So, or other things. I'd love to do that, definitely. But you remind me about Activate Space in the sense that I do have a friend, Kamir, who is trying to get a whole Jamaican food business going, and he's been trying to get churches. So I might connect you. Kemar Morgan, his name is, and he's So one of the things he was having a challenge with is space, but it's interesting because you remind me. Several years ago, I was the chair of the Chinese mission in Markham. Markham used to have, when it was York Presbytery, 2 Chinese missions. Now, unfortunately, there's none left, and I negotiated space at St. Andrews for a fraction of the cost at another church. The other mission was paying $1,000 a month. St. Andrews was willing to offer us $200 a month, so it was much more affordable, as you know. But I mean, this is amazing, because there was a church that closed a couple of years ago that couldn't figure out how to rent out their space, and someone like you would be phenomenal to help. I call you the Yenta the matchmaker. So you sort of. I have a perfect match. There's a group, a team, a room. Oh, it's perfect. Yeah, okay. Lots of possibilities. I mean, when you think about it, because as you named, so often churches have space, but they don't know how to leverage that relation. And then on the flip side, people don't know how to enter the church. I mean, there's sort of there's this locked door phenomenon, and it makes it very challenging. I mean, we have Joyce Barnes plugging in, who's our resident medium and Reach Angel card. She's quite remarkable in and of herself. But and again, thank you for being so authentic in what you do and what you say. But it's interesting because you mentioned about more mature people being techie, because I think there's a misnomer that once you reach a certain age, you can't be techie. So, I mean, one thing you might want to ponder is having a coding class for people over 50 or 40. Because when I hear that people in primary school are doing coding, well, guess what? They've lost me as soon as they said they're coding. So learning how to code with people that might actually speak the same language as me might actually be not a bad idea. So maybe that we could explore that as a possibility. But so, what years were you at Manor Road?
I think it was it 2018 or maybe 2017?
It was just after the renovation. So yes, probably 17, 18, before you came, John Joseph.
Okay, so was Roberta there? Or was it Deborah?
Roberta Howie.
Okay, Roberta. Okay, well, she's now at where's she at? She's at Lawrence Park now. She's at Lawrence Park. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, and her new position is coordinating ministry for 2030 something. So you might want to touch base with her. Okay. So that'd be quite it. So do other people have questions?
I don't have a question, but I just say it's very exciting that you've been able to find your niche and need, and that's the best way to be able to enjoy serve, right, is to find your niche and to spread it to others. And yes, technology is here. We're getting better at it. I speak for myself. I'm getting better at it. But even your connection with the other churches, I think last John Joseph said there's a lot of churches that are struggling. They don't know who to go, and they're trying to do it on their own or within their community. So with technology, they can reach out to each other through each other's church. So they're probably struggling through finances, and with lack of in-person, participation. It's been really difficult. So yeah, I think it's great what you're doing. I don't have a pertinent question right now, but I can only say that I can see a great future ahead. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jordana, have you ever met or encountered Sean Loney?
Talk to him a bit somewhere. Does he do a lot of social enterprise stuff?
That's his thing. But there'd be a good cross pollination with what you're doing and what he's doing, in many ways, because I mean, I've attended 2 different seminars that he's led, and there's a lot of remarkable. One particular project, there was a First Nations community up north that a high instance of diabetes, maybe 60-70%, and so instead of just throwing money at the medical bills, he convinced the government to invest in food nutrition. So what they did, instead of just bringing up the over salty and over sweet food from the south, so to speak, meaning where we are, they created their own food enterprise. So they created their own grocery business, so to speak, that had healthier and more, and they reduced their diabetes exponentially and created healthy food and created a co-op so people could actually invest in their own community. And because the food costs were ridiculous, and shipping up north, yeah. But I think like things like that are very empowering and very important.
Yeah, I think there's such a huge social enterprise part to this, because some of the things that we forget because we get caught up in our own work around the church sometimes is we forget that by offering folks affordable space in the way that we're able to offer them, oftentimes it prevents groups that would otherwise be priced out of like increasingly unaffordable cities from being priced out and displaced, because a lot of the high impact social groups that serve our local communities and are part of the local fabric are not for profit, so they're not bringing in a ton to spend on them. So churches are so uniquely positioned in the work that we're able to do in preventing this kind of displacement and preventing people from being pushed out who are offering an incredible service to the neighborhood, and whether that's a daycare, a ballet program, a culinary program, whatever it is, like these are people who are part of the fabric of our neighborhood, and it's so important to create these vibrant hubs where everyone feels welcome. And I feel like providing space is an important form of ministry that many churches do de facto, and you don't really think about it, but I think space as a ministry is something that's important to like hold up and share and be a little bit louder about out in the world, like something that the United Church actually does quite well. Obviously, there are room to try new tools and room to help congregations that are understaffed and don't have the time to run around and find tenants. Those tools are needed. But I think in general, the United Church is open to these sorts of things, and we do quite a good job at it. So I think we have to be a little bit louder about that as well.
Well, you think like right now at Manor Road, we have 2 or 3 different drama programs. We have obviously the daycare, and we have there's a program for children, younger adults living in the spectrum, and there's a brownies group, there's a karate group, there's a woman who teaches Thrive, which is sort of a one-on-one learning program to help people who are having learning challenges. So she uses one space in particular. And again, all these different programs are quite inspiring because, again, it's providing a need and a niche within the community, which I think is so important. Yeah, definitely. So do people have other questions? Oh. So I guess you're based in Toronto?
Yes, I'm based in Toronto.
So where do you get your funding?
So right now it is just out of my pocket. These things are quite expensive. I'm sure you can ask the folks at Airbnb how much it costs to build an online platform like this. I don't know how I've been able to make it this far, but it's
right.
Self-funded. So every cent I'm able to raise or I'm able to generate from doing speaking engagements like this,
right.
anything at all, I pours right back into Activate Space. And I just don't know how I've been able to do it over the years, but I have somehow.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're familiar with what's coming up with Engage, the community hub partner of the United Church, is the Unconference. Are you familiar with that?
I think it sounds familiar. I've heard of, maybe it's another unconference, but
well, because March 3rd, 4th is when they're doing the next one. Yeah. So you might think of even having a space of that, because that would be sort of a great way to promote yourself. But yeah, if not, yeah. Okay, this has been Did you have any questions of us?
Well, is Manuel still there?
Oh, yes.
He's not here on Fridays, but no. So Sunday or Thursday, yeah. Manuel's a golden person, yes.
Don't tell him I cried.
I will definitely do that, yeah.
I have a question. I just want to know if you have any future ideas that you're working towards. I mean, that's a very big question, but.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And I think for me, what I'm trying to do through the platform, there are many churches that are on the brink of closure and are facing a lot of financial challenges. And because of that, sometimes they feel very pressured to do very quick sales. And the only people who can pick up properties very quickly are private sector developers. And sometimes those sales, sometimes they make sense. Sometimes housing is needed in the neighborhood. But there's a ton of times where it doesn't make sense. And it's just something that's done very quickly because congregations are put in a very tough spot. So I want the Activate Space platform to offer an alternative.
So John, you went muted on us. Somehow, I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You're still muted, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah, for some reason we can't hear you. I'm not sure what happened there. Yeah. Okay, we'll try that. Okay. When in doubt, use a headset. Yeah. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Awesome.
Okay.
Oh, better.
Yeah. So I want Activate Space to kind of be this alternative to congregations being caught in a tough spot and having to do these quick sales, oftentimes to the private sector, when it doesn't always make sense. So I want them to be able to just log on, and if they have like available space in their buildings and there's local just incredible organizations and folks that would love to join them. Like I want this to be a very real opportunity, not just in Toronto, but across Canada, to prevent some of those quick sales that congregations feel forced into sometimes. And I think it's so important to maintain church spaces and maintain church congregations as community assets, just all the incredible things that churches are able to do. I just want Activate Space to help preserve that worldwide, as well as to help people who feel pushed out of certain communities, whether it be millennials who can't afford expensive spaces or homes or whatever it is, to be able to know that they can also go to Activate Space, connect with a congregation, and that they can find space where they are welcomed and valued everywhere across Canada. So those are my two main goals. One, to preserve the remaining churches within the United Church and, well, other denominations as well who are facing financial challenges, and two, young people like myself who don't know where they can belong within cities and sometimes feel pushed out, to be able to stay and to be able to put down roots, find a congregation, and to be able to like build their dreams and to find community. So those are my two main things that are part of my big future vision.
How would you propose to reach out to them? I think it's good right now. Yeah, probably the needs now.
Do you mean the congregations or the?
Yeah. How would you or could you put on I don't know if the United Church has a bulletin, let's say, that says, like when you put this church needs 5 new chairs, or what would be one way you could connect with them? I guess is what I'm saying. Or how do you think you can connect with them?
That's a good question. So a lot of it has been word of mouth through congregations that I've worked with in the past, or I have an advisory committee that I've been building out with like innovative faith leaders who have taken an interest in my work and see what I'm doing, and they get it and they know why it's important to the future that the church is heading towards, and they help spread the word. So it's kind of, we're just building space by space, and folks in the church, even the moderator, has taken a keen interest in my work, and the word is just spreading one congregation at a time. So definitely, if you find it interesting, you can participate in spreading the word around this work, but we're just slowly building and slowly spreading. As I said, this is something that I'm self-funding, so I don't have all the resources for advertising and all sorts of things. But when you don't have all the resources, you make a way and you make it happen, and that's what I've been doing, and that's what's been happening. So yeah.
Great. I think Susan put something in the chat about
basically where to resource people to find out what's happening. There's Broadview magazine, which is the United Church of Canada magazine, and then of course their own website. It would be resources, ways of.
Yeah,
I know that Broadview has want ads that where this is where you go if you were looking for a new minister or.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Susan, because Broadview has also taken a keen interest in my work, and I've also been featured in the magazine. So there are all sorts of people across the church, like from the moderator to Broadview to innovative faith leaders, who see what I'm doing and they get it, and we're all working together to just keep building this and just spread the word. So I'm so glad to be able to have that, because I know not everybody has that, so it's just slowly building.
Perfect. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Very excited. Now I see a couple of any other questions from people? Okay, it sounds like we're good. Well, thank you, Jordana, and certainly I have your email, but you might have mine, but let's continue to try to love to connect with your coffee. Actually, I do 2 podcasts per day. I mean, and we'll just sort of brief, hi, how are you type of things. But I've been doing that for a while, and it's been and it's interesting. So I'd love to chat with you further. I think that's a great idea. And films, again, film maniac, and so from my corner, can't get, and certainly theological reflection on film is a no-brainer. I personally think there's so much redemption and secular messiahship happening in films. But another story for another day. So, so over to Susan to say thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Jordana. This is wonderful, and we hope we can bring you back one day.
Yes, please do. I'll fill you in on this journey as it evolves. Thank you, Susan, and thank you all for listening.
Yes, thank you.
And then for next time, Susan.
Oh, next time we have. Let's pull it up here. It's about bees and their role in our everyday lives.
And just to remind everybody, I'll be starting in about 5 minutes.
Yes.
The memories of Thailand.
Bringing it up here, it is Joseph Curry. Bees are friends for life. And you may think in the city there's not a lot we can do, but very much what plants we keep, what plants we try to get rid of, that all affects the bees.
Thank you, Susan.
Hope we can